Welcome to our second panel here on this fine Saturday for the Right Crowd. This is the second weekend that the Right Crowd is taking place, and I am so very excited to introduce our panel, Children's Book Nook, and we have an array of such animated authors. You all, I'm so happy that y'all could be here, and you all have just such great personalities. Your books are so fun and so dynamic, and I cannot wait to get into it. I'm going to ask you all so many questions and pick your brains and get into the minds of your stories of who you are as people. It's going to be a lot of fun. Awesome. And I see the numbers on Facebook climbing. We already have a heart. Thank you for people watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you very much. And if you're watching live, please feel free to leave a comment, say hi. This is going to be a panel. I am going to be asking questions and the authors will be answering. So if you have a question or if you have something you'd like to say, maybe comment on something, then go ahead and leave a comment and I'll bring it up on screen and the authors will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. And of course, we'd love to say hi and make this as interactive as possible. So if this is your first time watching The Right Crowd panel, welcome. And The Right Crowd is essentially a virtual author expo happening every single Saturday and Sunday in the month of October at 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. We have panels of all sorts of genres, all sorts of topics, and it's always really fun to get into these conversations and hear about authors and what's going on with it. So it's a lot of fun. And if this is your first time, welcome. If you're a recurring watcher, and there have been a few that I'm always happy to say hi. Thank you for watching. And before we jump into it, yes, thank you very much for watching, and thank you, the panelists, for joining. And before we jump into the Q&A, I would like each of you, in order on screen, if you could just give a little shout out of who you are and the book that you write, and we'll get into more in-depth descriptions in a moment. But for now, just say like, hi, my name is, and I'm the author of, starting with the Jank.
All right. Hi, my name is Lamar Jones. I am the author of The Adventures of Sir Jankster. I got a 3 on there. My son did that, but that's the book.
Very nice. And Ron Ramírez?
Hi, my name is Ron Ramírez. I'm an author of the Purr-fect book series. If you're not familiar with it, they are books about special needs kids that go to the library and look for books. So that's my series.
Very nice. And Claudia Villarreal.
Hi, I'm Claudia Villarreal, and I'm the author of The Alphabet Thief Who Stole the Vowels and The Bully Who Learned to Love. And they're right behind me, so...
I love it. Thank you all so very much for joining. And I see more Facebook likes and more Facebook hearts. Thank you so very much. And remember, if you're tuning in live, either on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to drop a comment, say hi, say hello. And right now, we are going to get into more in-depth descriptions of our authors. And they're going to be sharing more about themselves on a professional level, personal level, and more about what the books are about. So beginning with Lamar Jones, why don't you tell us about yourself and the adventures of Sir Jankster?
All right. So just a little bit. I am the creator of the Jank Gourmet Barbecue Sauce, which is actually kind of where the book, The Adventures of Sir Jankster, kind of came about. The story itself is just about, somebody that has the odds stacked against them. And, despite all odds, chose to take a different path and do something a little different and fight through the things to accomplish his dreams. So that's the Adventures of Sir Jankster. Brief on what it is and what it's about.
I love it. And I know for anybody watching, this is not sponsored. This is nothing like that. But I know me on a personal level, I've got an almost empty bottle of the Jank original gourmet barbecue sauce in my fridge right now because it's so, yes, that exact one. It's so good. And it's absolutely always on the grocery list when we go. I'm like, Mom, you got to get the Jank. Like, it's really good. So moving on with Ron Ramírez, tell us about your series, a Purr-fect book series, and all about that.
Well, basically, like I mentioned before, there's 7 books in all. I think you had posted a picture of the 5 of them. So there's a Purr-fect book for Pablo, which is about a boy in a wheelchair, goes to the library looking for books, and he meets the fiction and nonfiction book, and they come to life. They help him look for a book. The second one is called The Perfect Book for Frida, and it's about a little blind girl. She goes to the library, and she wants to read about people like her that are blind. So it's about biographies. It talks about famous people that have been blind and that have done incredible things. And the next one is The Perfect Book for Carlos, and it's about the five types of fiction. So Carlos meets the five brothers. They're all fiction, different types of fiction. And then the next one is a perfect book. Well, actually, it's a perfect book for Christmas. It's a coloring book, but it also introduces kids to the Dewey Decimal System and by the hundred. So they get a little introduction to that. And then a perfect book for Tamryn. It's about a little girl that she is on the autism spectrum and she is looking for a resource book. So she learns about the four different types of resources, books to look for in the library. And then my newest book actually is going to come out. I'll give you a sneak preview. It looks like this. It's called A Perfect Book for Rebecca. And she's a little girl with Down syndrome, but she goes to the library to look for a book, but she doesn't know where to start. So she learns about the subject, how to find a subject of a book, and things like that. And of course, all of my books are rhyming books. So the kids get to introduced to rhyming, and they get the introduction to how to select a book, and learning about things about the library.
I love it. I love it. And I love like the diversity aspect as well as like they just look so colorful and so dynamic and I'm excited to learn more about them.
Thank
And
you. The illustrator, thank you.
yes. And Claudia Villarreal, tell us more about yourself and your two titles.
Well, I am super excited to introduce both of my books. That's Alfie, by the way. That's Alfie the Alphabet Thief and Buddy the Bully. And they're the two characters of my book. So the Alphabet Thief Who Stole the Vowels is about 10 years old now. So that was my first book. So I'm super excited about that one. And that one is about a thief who comes into our land and steals all the vowels. So words like left becomes lift, and then cat becomes kt. So none of the words make sense. So what that book does, I feel, it's a perfect book to introduce the vowels in our everyday language. And so that has been a really popular book for me. It sold over 25,000 copies. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who has a copy of that book. And then, of course, my newest book, which is The Bully Who Learned to Love. Right now, I guess I'm really excited about that book because it's about acceptance and kindness. And I actually wanted to share my shirt. It says "Spread kindness, not germs," which I think is a perfect message today. And that book just teaches about how there are differences, how we need to embrace those differences. And so Buddy starts out being a bully, but in the end, he learns that the best thing to do is to accept everybody and to love everybody. So those are my two books.
Nice.
I love it. And just the message and just it's so dynamic and I've seen you present and it's just always so engaging and it's wonderful. And I'm so happy to have you all here and I'm so very excited to jump into the Q&A and be asking questions and hearing your answers and getting down into the details of your writing process and even you on a more personal level. And so I'm very, very excited. And I see our Facebook and YouTube numbers climbing. Thank you for everyone watching. Thank you for leaving likes, leaving hearts. And if you have any comments, you want to say hi, if someone says something that you find interesting or you want to put in your own input, leave a comment. And if you have questions for the authors, absolutely, I'll pull them up on screen and the authors will answer. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into some questions. And my first question would be, where are you all tuning in from? I know we have Rio Grande Valley representation here. So if you want to, shout out where you're at right now, we can start with Lamar. Where are you tuning in from?
All right. West Laco is most definitely in the building.
Very nice. Very nice. And Ron, where are you at?
I'm in McAllen right now. I live here, so yeah, McAllen.
And Claudia, where are you?
I'm in Laredo, Texas. So I'm in my
Very
home in
nice.
Laredo, yeah.
Very nice. And I'm in Harlingen, so we've got all sorts of different pockets represented, and we're here.
Wow.
And I think that's a really cool, facet, and something I really wanted to drive home, with the right crowd. That we haven't seen each other in so long in person, and we may be in our homes and we're staying safe, and even though we're apart, we're still here celebrating, saying hi. Having this ability to have these conversations and still stay safe, but we're together, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what made you sit down and write, those first words of your book? Did you know that you were going to write a book and you sat down and you said, this is exactly what I'm going to get done, and it became like that? Or did it kind of manifest over time? Before you knew it, you had this manuscript, or you didn't really realize, oh my gosh, this is going to turn into a book, this is going to be a series. What was the process in making that happen? Starting with Lamar?
Well, to be honest, I did start. I had started writing some manuscripts on a book because I felt like I wanted to do a story or a biography of some sort, possibly. But then, being that I work in the school system as well, I deal with kids a lot. I felt that it would be kind of more appropriate to do something that was like an inspirational story for the kids. With the slight success I've had with the barbecue sauce and being able to kind of tell that story. Because there's just not a whole lot of representation of seeing, people coming from where we come from, and having an example of somebody that's doing something other than, what they're used to seeing in the neighborhood and things of that nature. So coming up with the book didn't really take that long as far as writing it. I kind of used a music background to kind of help me put it together. It's definitely in a rhyming format, it's free form. But there's actually a song for it aside from, the book being written itself. So you can kind of look up the song itself, which is The Adventures of Sir Jankster. But it kind of came easy, a little more natural to me because of the music background as far as writing the book. But it was definitely more of a natural progression from some of the manuscripts and things ideas that I had prior to.
I love it. And I love that you bring in, representation with it. Absolutely giving these children role models and an example to look at, and that their, inspiration can come from different places. And I love how you draw from the music background. It shows it's children and it shows students that, inspiration can come from anywhere, and you can create these stories using your own personal experiences, which is really fun and really interesting.
Definitely. And it is a true story. Everything in the book is completely true. It is my life in the form of a children's book.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And Ramírez, if you want to talk a little bit about your origins of your Purr-fect book series.
Okay, well, I think I shared this with you yesterday or the other day that I was in education for 29 years, 29 long years. Of course, I started when I was like 15, but anyway, I retired, and then one of my goals was that I was going to be a children's book author. So after 16 years as a librarian, and I was flipping through all these books, I was kind of like, I could probably do that, kind of stick with the same kind of children's book thing. And then I met, I don't know if you all know Gail Gibbons, but being a literacy concierge, I hosted her one time and drove her around to different schools and things like that. And she writes nonfiction books, but children's illustrated nonfiction books, because she illustrates them herself. So I think that's when I told myself, future self, I'm going to write books that kids can learn from, but can also appreciate the pictures. So that's why I end up having these characters. There's see if I could get it right, nonfiction and fiction. So that's where I figured that would be my anchor, that they would be hosting the kids and driving them through the library, learning about books, but also, being entertained and fascinated with the illustrations. So that way it makes it interesting, and then they can, read and learn. So it just turned out that I wrote, well, we can talk about the writing process later, but that's basically how I started. One book became two books, and then I kind of had to figure out how many interesting things could I put in the book, that's what I did.
I love it. I love it so much. And Claudia Villarreal, how did your stories come about, and how was the writing process for the two? Were they different, or did it, like, what are the origins of those two titles?
Well, Katelynn, I always like to tell everybody that I didn't choose the profession chose me, because I didn't set out, interestingly enough, to become a writer. I actually was a teacher, and then I was in Los Angeles, and I was doing some acting and everything. And one night I was reading a book, and all of a sudden these words started coming to my mind, and it was like a marquee, in the deep, like a cold. And so all of these words, and I started writing them down. I always tell everybody that this gift was a gift from God. And it took 10 years later, and the same thing happened. Like at 4 a.m, I woke up, and all of a sudden, all these words. So I always say he gifted me these stories to share, because I don't feel like I ever, set out to write anything. I mean, I love books, I love reading them, but I always tell people that because it was a surprise. And so once they were done, I felt like I needed to share their message. So.
I love it. I love it so much. And we do have a couple of comments coming in. We have the Storybook Garden saying, hello, friends.
Hello, Storybook Garden.
Hi. And we have another local author who was on our debut panel for The Right Crowd, Ray Hope, saying, the Jake can sing. Hear him sing.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray.
And I've heard you in your presentations when you carry a tune, and it's so nice. And I don't know if right now or later, if you want to give a short demonstration, or if you want to say that's for the presentation, it's up to you.
That's the next show.
Who knows? Who knows?
But that brings me to my next question. And Ron, I'm glad that you had brought it up, of what is your writing process like? Like, I know for myself, it's all over the place. I'm a big outliner, first and foremost, that I tend to outline. When I have ideas, I'll add them to it. But Claudia, I like how you mentioned that sometimes it just comes, and it's in bursts and waves, and this inspiration can just come, and you got to get it down. Or, Lamar, like taking from your own experiences and creating it into something shareable with other people. So what is your writing process like, starting with Lamar?
The writing process is really actually after being inspired to write. And Claudia made a very good point. 9 times out of 10, the best ideas seem to come at 0 o'clock in the morning, which is usually 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And those moments, being able to kind of get up and write those things down, because they'll leave you just as quick as they come. So you got to be able to take advantage of that and in the moment and write. So everything that I write, down to the music, down to, the book when it was written, all inspiration. And I was inspired at the time by life, whatever was going on in life at that time, or whatever memories I might have been thinking about at that time. And I use life as my muse. So that's really how the writing process is for me. It's actually very hard for me to sit down and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to write a song or a book about, any random topic. It's very hard for me to do that. 9 times out of 10, I have to be inspired to write whatever it is that I write.
I like that. And especially the test, tip of the hat to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
that's like my prime time. I love it. I love it. And Ramírez, what's your writing process like for your book series?
Well, this series, like I said, I was a librarian, so usually the saying goes, write what you know. So when I told myself I was going to write children's books, and wanted them to be meaningful, educational, I said, well, basically I'll write about kids that go to the library looking for books. So that's where I started from, and I knew that you have to have some type of introduction, right? So my first book, The Perfect Book for Pablo, introduces the fiction book, the nonfiction book, and the computer, and then they all have a role in finding the book, right? So that's where I started, and I already made my mindset that I was going to write 6 books. So each character was going to introduce a new topic, from the library. And then, speaking of inspiration, my illustrator, which I want to shout out to Yaretsi Perez here. Oh yeah, Yaretsi Perez, that she said, "Hey, I would like to do like a coloring book. Like kids like to color, right?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just not gonna make a coloring book. It has to be a book that they can learn from, and color."
Yeah.
So that's why it's about nonfiction books. And so she got inspired by illustrating the book that I got, and then I got inspired by her bringing up the topic of coloring books. So it kind of went hand in hand. That was a true collaboration on that part.
Awesome.
So I think that probably the best way that I work though is I have to have a plan. I always map it out. Like you say, you use outline. So I outline this, that, or whatever, and then sometimes I work backwards. And since I told you that there are rhyming books, then I have to go back and say, okay, well, what rhymes with query? And then I go back and I try to find a word, and then I make it fit into a rhyming. So basically, that's my way. It's a little bit of back and forth. It's a little bit of linear, but it's a little bit of kind of create as I go.
I love it. And I love how you refer back to, the write what you know, because a lot of times, people overlook the fact that personal experiences or like your own knowledge or realm of work can create these
Yeah.
stories that are able to share and contribute. And so I really like that testament.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Everybody has a story, right?
Definitely.
yes, 100%. And Claudia Villarreal, what about yourself? Your writing process, either in general or for your two titles?
Well, for me, for my two titles, like I said, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I literally wrote them down. The Alphabet Thief Who Stole the Vowels, I wrote it down on paper. The Bully Who Learned to Love was written on my phone. So they were fairly written both under an hour, but what took the longest was developing the character, developing working with the illustrator, developing the story, after it's written, and of course, sending it to an editor and all that stuff. Right after that happens and we choose the character is the longest to choose. Like it's like, okay, well, is he going to be this color or that color, or is he going to have a tail or not have a tail, because I wanted both of my characters to be original. So once that happens, pretty much we map out the story, and it gets sent off, and it takes about a year before I see it in the form of a book. And so, but basically the only thing that I do is, I guess, write down the story when it comes to me. I don't have a process other than that, so
I love it though. Like the inspiration just like striking, and like it does happen, like where you don't expect it. And I think that's some of the most unique stories and like fun dynamics come from, where you are not expecting it at all, and then look at what you can create and look at what manifests. It's super, super interesting.
They call them pantsers, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you heard that or not, but
I've had like once before, but honestly, yes. But my next question would be involving, our current world situation. It's been tough not being able to see each other or go to events or go to schools. I miss it so much, and that's why I'm so very grateful for you all to coming on the panel and saying hi and being able to see each other and interact. And so, how has our current world situation like impacted your writing career or authorship? I know it would be great, right, to say like, oh, this is the most productive I've ever been, but that's not, that's not how it always unfolds. So, have you been able to focus more on writing or like certain aspects, or maybe you've been able to open your horizons to other projects? How has, our current world's circumstances influenced this part of your life? Lamar?
Definitely given me a lot more time to do things. I'm so used to running and doing things when we were not in the pandemic, to where I was barely home. I was just doing a lot of things. So it definitely gave me some time to sit down, be still, actually come up, with more ideas, or even move on some of the ideas that I had planned already, through the year, but just didn't have time to do. So, a lot of my focus, again, with the barbecue sauce, because the book is just I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Just a part of the barbecue sauce, like that. It came from that. So like just being able to sit back and work on things like the website, work on some more ideas, working on, getting ready to put a podcast out eventually. So putting the content together, videos, all of these different things that I just didn't have the time to sit down and do. I haven't written any books, but I have been doing a lot of writing about just in general, the things that are taking place during this time, kind of documenting what's taking place during this time in history, because this 2020 is definitely going to be one of those years that's talked about hundreds of thousands of years into the history books, because there's never been a year or anything like this. So this is going to be in the history books, and just trying to document that and make sure that my part of what was going on, or my story of what was actually going on during this time is told in some way, shape, or form, and just trying to stay as productive as possible.
I love it. I love it. I love the fact that, branching out into other things that, you might not have been able to even think of or like focus on. And, it has prompted a lot of us to slow down, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We can focus on other aspects, create new things. It's exciting. And I'm excited for what's to come for you. I'm excited. Cool. And Ran Ramirez, what about yourself with our current world situation impacting your writing and authorship?
Well, to be honest with you, it really hasn't impacted my writing, and my book's already done already. So, like I said, I have two waiting, on the back burner to come out. So, as far as my day to day, I also write cultural novellas. So, I'm kind of working on the second part of the first novel, the first novella. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's going to be a trilogy, obviously. So I'm on book 2. So, but that could probably be finished, by the end of this year, and then maybe next year I'll come out with it. I don't know. Just depends.
Very nice. Exciting though. Exciting things to come. And Claudia Villarreal, how has our current world situation with your writing and authorship?
Well, I'm the opposite of Ron. I mean, that, it has changed my life drastically. I mean, visiting schools was my livelihood. I was booked from September, end of September till May 10th. I think it was on a Saturday that I had to go to a festival, and all of a sudden, March 13th, everything came to a halt. At the beginning, it was a little bit shocking for me to take it in, because it was like I had so many things to do, and it was like so many places to visit, and the next thing I know, I'm just visiting the kitchen, the living room. It's like nowhere to go. So it impacted me a lot. First, I want to say negatively, but then now I'm trying to turn it into a positive, where I've been forced to learn about technology. All my presentations were face to face, and now I'm doing this. I've never been on a live, so thank you. Well, this is my second time, but I have a couple of author visits scheduled, and now I know more or less how it's going to work. So I've been forced to think outside the box, get on Instagram, use social marketing, because I've never had to do that. It was always schools and librarians, which I want to just say thank you right now to all the librarians who have supported me over the years, especially in South Texas. They've been wonderful. So thank you guys. But yeah, I've been forced to just think outside the box, basically, and technology, which is something that I was like this. I have no idea how to work it, but now I do. So.
I'm glad, we learn new skills and we grow our resume of what we're able to do and what we're able to understand. And I'm so glad that you could be here on the live and, answering these questions and sharing all these things. And I do have a comment from Rejo Pele, co-author, saying, I thought I'm the only one crazy. Like me, you are all crazy, beautiful. If y'all are authors, I am one too, then proud of y'all. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for saying hello. And again, anyone on Facebook land or over there in YouTube, if you have a question or just want to say hi, go ahead and drop a comment and we'll answer the questions and say hello back. This is fun. We're having these conversations. And that leads me to my next question of what is the easiest or most difficult part of this whole, career, either stemming from actually writing or the marketing aspect or the book publication part or the visits and, in person to virtual? Like, what are some of the easiest or most difficult aspects of this part of the career? Starting with Lamar.
I think everybody's story is going to be a little different. The easy part, I would say, for me is the actual presenting. Again, coming from the music background, I'm used to being on stage. I'm kind of used to being out in front. My presentation incorporates the music, incorporates the poetry, all of those things that I'm used to doing. I would say the hardest part about it all was probably the organization side of it and putting it all together, figuring out what actually works, what doesn't. And I'll give an example of, going to your first presentation, all of the things that you feel like you need to bring along to these presentations. Like I need shirts, I need books, I need bookmarks, I need all these different things. Like I need a computer, I need, some speakers, all this different stuff that you have to kind of put together. And then as you do them and it becomes a little more seamless, you figure out you don't necessarily need as much as you thought you needed to come in and do it. And that's probably I would say probably the hardest part about the whole process for me.
Very nice. Very nice. And Ron Ramirez, what about yourself? Easiest or most difficult parts of this whole aspect of your life?
I think probably as far as like the book part goes, I think putting it all together, since I actually independently published my books, so it was like I was not only the writer, but then I had to be the editor, and then I had to be the formatted, and then had to work with the illustrator, going back and forth just so that the pictures would be right for the text, and then gathering all that and then putting it back into an electronic format, so that it could digitally be, sent to the printer, and then, then it coming back, having to go. I mean, I'm doing all this myself, so I think that would be the hardest part, is scheduling everything and working with the other different parts of people that I have to work with, and then on top of like marketing, T-shirts and caps and bags and stuff like that, what works, what wouldn't work, that kind of thing. And it's just, but I think, like I said earlier, I made a plan, so I followed that plan and I moved that plan along so that finally I could accomplish what I wanted to do.
Very nice, very nice. And Claudia Villarreal, yourself, the easiest or most difficult parts of writing and authorship?
Well, for me, the easiest is also school presentations. I mean, I was a teacher before, so I did teach. I have my degree in special education. So combining that plus the little bit of acting that I did and do and mixing it together was so easy. I love meeting the teachers. I love meeting the librarians. I love meeting the kids. I mean, the librarians, again, I go back to them. They're full of personality. So that's just the easiest for me. The hardest for me, which I learned now, because for me it was always word of mouth. It was like, oh, so and so wants you to visit their school and their school, and the first time around I had like 2 years booked in presentations because just through word of mouth. But now that the pandemic happened, I learned that the hardest thing for me has been marketing. It's like, what do I do now? I no longer have that. So how do I do it? So now I'm trying to figure out, just like Ron and Lamar, like, okay, now I need T-shirts. Okay, now I need, I'm going to do maybe stuffed animals, maybe, pencils, a bookmark, something. So that I learned now recently that is the hardest part for me. I don't know much about marketing. So, yeah.
But it's a learning experience. Like, as you go along, you learn more and gain new skills, and you find out what works and what might not work as well. And then what's like that's the key, that's the bread and butter, versus like, okay, this is my strength, this is my weakness. Like, let's build and keep going and keep growing. I love it. Yeah. And my next question would be, and I know we talked about this a little bit, talking about the books, but if you want to go into a little bit more detail for people who on Facebook and YouTube who are just joining us, maybe in these past couple minutes, what messages or what message are you trying to portray through your writing and through your books? Like, I know through the different stories? Like there might be maybe that certain message or that certain connection, or when students or readers walk away from your story, what do you want them to take with you? What's the message behind it? Starting with Lamar.
Awesome, awesome. Very, very cliche. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I'll just kind of read like the very first, like the opening to the book, which just says, if the odds have ever been stacked against you, this book is for you. There's a purpose for your gift. Choose to inspire and uplift. Make a choice. Choose to inspire and uplift. So like, just to go out and be that change that you want to see in the world, and don't let anything or anybody tell you that you can't accomplish something. No matter what your socioeconomic background is, no matter where you come from, no matter what your family situation is, there's nothing that can determine what it is, who you're going to be in life except for you. You're going to always be your own worst enemy. It's going to be important to trust the process. All of those things that, push you through when you're going through things in life. So we all have our own stories. We all have faced different challenges in our life, and just brief, background on myself and why I say this and why I can speak about it. I also work in special education in a severe unit. I started my education career as a substitute teacher. But when I was 9, I started living with my grandmother because my mother at the time had a drug addiction. I grew up with a very verbally abusive grandfather. I didn't meet my biological father till I was about 24. So I say that just to let the kids know that, it really does not matter where you come from. And all of those things that I mentioned, the neighborhood that I grew up in, are easily reasons for somebody to give up and quit and not, do anything because they just don't know any better. So being in that position just puts me in a position to really say, hey, you know what, I've been here. I know what you're going through. I can kind of identify. And so if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just got to put your mind to it. You got to stay focused. And at the end of the day, you got to trust the process.
I'm gonna cry. Like I love it. I love it so much. And just like again, like going back to like representation, where like these students and these children who hear the story, like they see that passion that you have, and they see that what you're telling them is coming from a place of genuineness. Like it's not just something that you're saying. Like you're truly getting that message across, and it's absolutely beautiful.
There's one other thing that I always want the kids to take away from anything that I put out as well. And it's just that when you get to that place, when you reach that level of success, whatever that level is, don't ever forget to kind of go back and pay it forward and give back to, the people that help you along the way, and those people that are coming up that again, just hadn't had the opportunity. So it's going to be important to really give back and pay it forward at whatever level of success you get to.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And Ramírez, what about the messages or connections you're trying to portray in your own stories?
Well, I mean, they're not as deep as Lamar's, but I guess basically my message is buy my book. That's my message. No, actually, like I mentioned earlier, these kids are the special needs kids, and I think probably when I noticed the books in the library, there weren't a lot of books about special needs kids, or much less kids that are individuals. So I think I probably, I mean, not only would you see kids like this, but my message would be diversity. My message would be individuality. My message would be literacy for all. That's my hashtag. Don't steal it. And basically, that's basically my. I mean, they're to educate. They're to entertain. They're just for everybody. Really.
I love it. I love it. And just the diversity of including, like the representation of, kids that might not see themselves a lot in books or as characters, like bringing that to light and allowing them to make that connection is another level. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Thanks.
And Claudia Villarreal, what about the messages in your books? What are you trying to connect with the students and for all who read them?
Well, both books have two messages. Of course, there's the alphabet thief who stole the vowels has the obvious message. You know, vowels are important. Reading is important. You know, I think almost all words in the English language contain a vowel. There are a few that, like sky and fly, that don't have a vowel, but of course they have the vowel sound. So that, of course, is the message that you see on the title. You know, the obvious one, right? And the other message, throughout the story, the thief learns that he has to share, that he can't just take something and, you know, make it his, that he has to share, that there's ways to be kind. So at the end of the book, he knows he has to share and, you know, be kinder, which brings me to my second book, The Bully Who Learned to Love. Of course, that also, I think I combine Ron and Lamar's message, because the message is of course acceptance, to be kind, not to bully. And I just want to say something, something off topic. Well, not off topic, but October. I'm actually glad that you're doing this in October, because October is Bullying Prevention Month. So I'm glad that I get a chance to speak about this book, because it does speak on, you know, not to bully and to include everybody. You know, one of the lines from it that I want to put on a shirt, not that some people are deaf, some people are blind, so always remember it's good to be kind. So I want to use always remember it's good to be kind, and that's what I want them to remember, that it is good to be kind.
Awesome.
I love it so much. And today, October 10th, is also World Mental Health Day. And I think, you know, a lot of times we refer to mental health in our own aspect, which is absolutely important and very imperative, you know, taking care of yourself, working on healing and, you know, finding consolation and all that stuff. But it also, your own mental health, you know, in terms of how you act to others and being kind to others, and like what you put out into the universe is what you get back in. And so I'm glad that the stars aligned for Bullying Prevention Month and World Mental Health Day.
Yeah.
This came together really well. And so my next question would be, what do you all see for your future, either pertaining to writing or otherwise? Any projects in the works or goals that you're trying to reach and accomplish? What do you see in the future moving on from here forward, starting with Lamar?
I definitely see some more books in the future. I definitely want to turn this thing into a series and just have it really focusing on, you know, life lessons, you know, things that I've learned along the way, tools that have kind of helped me get to a point in life where I am now. And again, I just feel like the representation, being able to let the kids know, you know, that as long as you do your absolute best, like that's really all you can do. Because I think a lot of times, you know, you get caught up in, and including myself, you get caught up in, you know, am I good enough? Is it going to be good enough? Are people going to like it? Are people going to like me? You know, and I think we've all had those feelings or thoughts at some point in time. So just really driving home the message through a series of stories, podcast videos, you know, you know, I have animated, you know, videos and characters and things of that nature that I'm always sharing. But just let you know that as long as you're doing your absolute best, your best is going to always be enough. And that's the only thing that should matter. So there's a lot of stuff coming out, just a lot of stuff in the works.
I love it. And you're continuing to do things with the barbecue sauce as well. Like
Definitely.
I think you had like a sugar-free, or like with that kind of aspect. Yes.
It's diabetic. So this just happened in January. So it's a diabetic friendly, keto friendly version of the jank. And this kind of came about because my mom is diabetic, my grandmother's diabetic, and the Valley in general has a very high, you know, percentage of diabetic and obese people in this area. So it's one of those things that, you know, when you talk about putting your best foot forward and being conscious about what you put out into the world. I love the fact that all of the, you know, Ron and Claudia, their books and their messages are all positive. There's enough negativity in the world. So it's good to be able to put that stuff out. So even with the barbecue sauce, you want to put the best product out. No corn syrup, gluten-free, no MSG, but it still tastes good. So you're not, you know, compromising on the flavor. But then for the folks that can't really do the barbecue sauce, now you have the goodness, and name the goodness, because, you know, I want you to get away from that idea that because it's good for you, it can't be good. So that's the latest thing. Hopefully, fingers crossed, not even fingers crossed. I got some not sample packets, but like catch-up packets. That's one of the things in the works right now. So soon you'll be able to get Jank to go. And people have been asking for a long time. So I've been listening, and that's one of the things on the pipeline right now.
I'm so excited.
Wow.
Like, you don't understand. Like, Jank to go. Oh, that's so cool. I'm excited for that. I'm adding that like to the grocery list. Like, okay.
There you go. There you go.
Yes. And so, Ron Ramirez, what about for yourself? Things in the future or any goals that you're trying to reach and plans?
I would have to say no. No, I'm just kidding. I think probably I would like to continue with my novellas. I think, well, the Purr-fect book series that's already finished already. So unless I go back and add like a Purr-fect book for Halloween or a Purr-fect book for some whatever else holiday, I could do that. That's why I kind of left it open-ended so that I could continue the series if I wanted to. But other than that, I'm kind of good where I am right now.
Living life.
But you live it exactly, like just vibing and live it, like appreciate. Like, this is great. And again, I'm glad that you could join and like share the book stories and like get it more to more audiences and more reach of just talking about what you have written and what you can contribute. And so, thank you again for joining. And Claudia Villarreal, anything in terms of your future or plans and what you hope to accomplish later on?
Well, I also left the Alphabet Thief open-ended because I originally wrote it as a series to see maybe he'll come back and steal another letter. There's, about 21 more letters to go. So I could always do that. But I see, personally, I see a move to a bigger city. Not that I don't love Laredo, but I think I want to grow and expand that way. Maybe San Antonio or maybe back to Los Angeles. Professionally, I was a franchise owner. I owned a franchise for 9 years, and I opened another, a card hauling business, and I did all these other things, and I sold everything to focus on just doing book tours. So when the pandemic stopped that, I'm hoping that everything, reopens as early as, next year so that I could go back. I want a world tour, Katelynn. I want to go, and tour everywhere. Those are my dreams, of course. Yeah. Well, I love local, yes, but I actually want to venture out into other states as well. Definitely. I want The Bully Who Learned to Love to become a classic. I mean, I would love to, who doesn't want that, right? So I'm thinking big. I'm dreaming big. So putting that out there in the universe.
There you go.
But it's great. If a world tour, send me postcards and I'll like put them on my wall and be like, look where Claudia was. And like, I love it so very much. And like I mean, things might be, at a stuttering or like at a maybe slow pace now, but like it's giving us time to plan and time to dream and time to add to the to-do list. So that way later on when everything's safe again and we can get going, we can hit the ground running and accomplish everything and then some. So it's exciting, and I'm excited to see what else is to come. And another question I had would be for aspiring writers or for aspiring authors or for anyone interested in writing either a children's book or a book in general, what advice would you give them, either from your own personal experiences or things, I wish I had known this beforehand, or maybe something you've learned along the way? What's something that you would be words of wisdom or advice to aspiring writers and authors, starting with Lamar?
Very, very appropriate. And I'm not sure if you guys can see this or not, but it says EDOD, and it stands for either you do it or you do it. Quitting is not an option. That's one of the themes in the book as well. Just like get out there and do it. And not just about writing in general, in life. I think that if I had known all of the obstacles and things that I would have faced, starting a barbecue sauce business, writing a book, being a musician, all of the different hats that I wear, if I had known the things that I was going to run into prior to, I probably would not have become an entrepreneur. And that's just honest. So the lack of knowing, the ignorance behind what I was doing. And the comment earlier about us being crazy, like you have to be crazy enough to take that leap of faith. Like you literally have to be crazy enough to take that leap of faith. I think that this time, this pandemic, everything that's been going on has also made us kind of look around at, what our income is and our different streams of income. Being able to have a few different streams of income is also become one of the things that's kind of come out to the forefront, because you never know. Things could always stop at any given time. But if you have a few different things kind of going on, you got your hands in some of everything, you're able to kind of move through some of these things. And it's just, again, just get out there and do it. There's no right or wrong way to get out there and fail forward. You're going to fail. You're going to, lose things. It's not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. And if anybody tells you that it's an easy process, they're not telling you the truth. So I would say just get out there, do it, and do what you love.
I love it. I love it so much. And I love Idioti.
Idioti.
So good. Idioti.
I love these are available too. So, Kayla, we might need to get together and get you some of these to get out to some of your listeners. We got plenty of those on hand.
Oh my gosh, yes, I would love that. I'm gonna put that everywhere, involve anytime I'm interacting with you, just hashtag Idioti. Bringing that up there. Yes. I love it. And Ron, Ramírez, do you have any advice or words of wisdom to aspiring writers and authors?
I would say don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I think probably the most sanest advice would be is to believe in your story or believe in yourself. I guess that's the thing. Unless you go out there and try to do it, you'll never know. So if you don't try, you don't know. So, like I said, when I published this independently, but I don't want to give people the idea that I did it alone, which I didn't. I mean, I have a strong family background, so they supported me. I have a strong circle of friends, and they supported me. So you can't do it alone, regardless. And I think that's the main thing, is that if you believe you can do it, your friends will think you can do it, your family will think you can do it, and they'll support you. Well, I mean, if you have the right family and friends, I guess. But I think that if you do it and you don't, feel successful, then that's a learning experience in itself. Failure is experience. So, and that's what you need. You need to experience it in order to move on. I know that might sound kind of rough, but it's true. And I've experienced it, believe me. I have experienced a lot of disappointment for a lot of people. So I think that, that's the main thing. Just believe in yourself and do it.
There you go. Idioti.
Idioti, exactly.
Idioti.
And I love that you tied back to, failure is an experience. A lot of times we see failure as a setback or an obstacle, or, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to continue? But that's just another thing to add, to the files of, I've been through this. It's okay. How can we learn? How can we grow? How can we move forward? That's a really, really great sentiment. And Claudia Villarreal, what about yourself? Any advice for aspiring writers or authors interested in writing and being, joining our author family?
Well, I would say that no matter where you're at, if an idea strikes you that you feel that it's a great idea, stop what you're doing, write it down. And then, if you want to explore it at that moment, do it, because sometimes we don't explore and then we forget. So I would just say, stop what you're doing, write it down, and then you revisit it later if you have to. And then to piggyback off what Lamar and Ron said, actually, I was looking for a quote while Lamar was talking. It says, the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And I have been called crazy more than enough times. It's like, what are you doing? You're moving to LA, you're crazy. So I'm okay. I'm already used to that. I've been labeled as that before, but if you don't think you can, and I have to struggle with this, because I struggle with it every day. I struggle with low self-esteem sometimes because I could get 1,000 compliments and one person will give me a negative comment or maybe just constructive criticism, and I hang on to that. And along with everybody else, I need to learn to let that go and be persistent. Just be persistent, be persistent, be persistent. That is the main thing. Otherwise, you won't know whether you could have succeeded or not.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love
Sure.
it so much. There's just like, a lot of times people are afraid to take that leap, like Lamar had said. And then it's a matter of like believing in yourself to do it. Like Ron just, Idioti, just do it. Like Ron like expanded on that of just, just take the leap. And, we learn if we stumble, we'll learn from it. And then, just taking that first step, I think, is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You got to start in order to reach the end point. And even if it gets hard, even if it gets difficult, continue to pursue, continuing to grow. And it's so fun. And we have a couple of minutes left, and I think one of the last questions I can ask is, do you have any interesting or maybe close to your heart stories, like from your authorship and your author career? This could be throughout the writing process. Maybe you had like a nice close to your heart moment or like an epiphany of something, or actually publishing the book, like maybe the first time you held that copy in your hands, you were like, wow. Or maybe, at an interaction at an event or a school visit, if you had, a certain interaction with a reader. What's a close to your heart story that you had, beginning with Lamar?
Oh man, there's so many. One of the things that really stood out to me was at elementary school. I want to say it was Airport Elementary, one of the schools that I visited, and there was a student, autistic, and the librarian sent me a message, kind of like the day after the event. It ended up happening that I ended up gifting the student a T-shirt that day while I was there. I can't remember exactly why I gifted the student that T-shirt, but she sent me a picture with him, wearing a T-shirt, holding the book, and was just telling me how excited his parents were that he was excited about a book and wanting to read. And I'm positive that it had everything to do with, just the way that the book was presented. The music always helps. I haven't met a kid yet that doesn't like music and doesn't like to dance. So, all of those aspects are things that you just never know how your story, how your book or story is going to like touch or reach somebody. And those things always kind of hit home the hardest, just being able to know that you've inspired, somebody to some level.
I love it. I love it so much. And it's making those connections. That's one of the most beautiful part of this whole entire journey. That's one of the, I know, like one of my, if not my favorite part, making those connections and knowing like that sparks something. Something's going to grow from here. Ron Ramírez, any special to your heart stories throughout your writing or author experience?
I think I probably would have to say any interaction that I have with people in general, and I think that, like, from the child that looks at my books and loves it, is fascinated with the pictures. I had sold a cap to this older gentleman, and I was like, because it has the characters on the cap, right? And then he said, "Are these books?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a nonfiction book and there's a fiction book." And then he was like, "Oh, okay, I'll buy it." And then I was like, "Well, where is this man coming from, right?" And then, but a sale is a sale, you know what I'm saying? So I said, "Okay, well, here's the book, here's the cap," and he wore it proudly, and because he likes books, so. And then, the people that I meet, the people that I, have that buy my books, like the lady that she has a brother that's in a wheelchair, and that it reminded of her, of that, and starting to cry, over the emotion that he's represented by this character, that she hadn't seen. And so anytime I see or I meet a person that's interested in the book because of the connection that they make to it. They're either making an emotional connection or a mental connection or some type of connection. That's what I appreciate the most, because I'm writing the books for people to read. Obviously, I'm not writing it to be famous, or I'm not writing it to be rich, but I'm writing it because the message, it's an obvious message, that, and that's why at the end of every book, when you meet the character, they're looking for a perfect book for me. So that's the whole thing, that individuality, that they can see themselves in the books. So that's basically it.
I love it. Just that, like, again, going back, like, this entire panel just has these, like, connections that, like, really get to you, either to the specific reader or the specific experience, or, like, the message that's going to drive home. And it's absolutely wonderful. And Claudia, what about yourself?
Well, I've had a lot of stories, and I think the same thing holds true for me, where it is about the connection. I mean, whether it's a teacher or a librarian who tells me that, the bully who learned to love made them cry. Or I've had people write to me, like a whole fourth grade class, sent me letters and to read, to the and believe that you made that much impact. And then, of course, there's like festivals where they'll make a character out of a pumpkin or out of a potato. And I've had that happen 4 or 5 times, where it's like, wow. Or those that, maybe were in kinder when I read, the Alphabet Thief Who Stole the Vowels, that I recently visited this last year in 5th grade. They're like, I remember you. So all of those things, keep you going. They make it memorable, and they make this, a wonderful profession to be in. Like I said, I didn't choose it, but I am so, so glad that it did choose me. So
I love it. And I've even seen on your social media, like, some TikToks where people are, like, talking about the book on there too.
Actually, yes. I've been blessed. And if I can mention this, there was that family, they have, I think like millions of viewers. So they made a video. I sent them a book, and they made a video that got like 200,000 views and 20,000 likes. And recently, I had a lot of local artists help out. I don't know if you guys have heard of Intocable. They're a band from my hometown that have sold millions of records, and they helped me out too. They plugged the book, and Daniela Correa, Carlos Correa's his wife, and of course Paulina Chavez, who is the lead of a Netflix sitcom. She plugged my book. And recently, Eva Longoria shared it on her Instagram, and I was like, wow. And I wanted to say that made a difference, not because Eva Longoria shared it, but because the day before, I had gotten my very first ever negative comment on my Facebook page. It said, I put stop bullying, and somebody put no, that I was basically a really derogatory, line, basically to stop being, something, so that I was teaching kids to be weak, basically. And it hurt because it felt like all of this work that I'm doing to try to get people to be kind, then that one negative comment really got to me. But the next day, Eva Longoria shared it, so I forgot about it, and I said, you know what, it'll be okay, everything's gonna be okay. So
And it's just focusing on the positive, because,
yes.
like, I know Lamar had said it earlier, there's already enough, like, negativity in the world, and it's a sad thing, and there's always going to be negative comments and the naysayers and the doubters, and it's up to us to, combat that, of, like, this is my goal, this is what I'm searching for, this is what I'm going to accomplish, and it's, those positive comments and the support that reminds you, like, this is it. This is, why we're doing what we're doing, and making those connections are really insightful, and just keeping and pursuing, even if it gets tough, even if people say, like, you can't, like, it's just all the more when you reach that goal, and then some to say, like, but I did. And, we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep growing. So thank you all so very much for joining, and thank you for being here. I had one comment from Rejope saying, you all reminded me that October is also Filipino Heritage Month. So Katelynn, including me, a Filipino American, in your maiden panel October 3rd, you inadvertently took part in the Filipino Heritage Month. Thank you again. Thank you, Ray. And I think that's awesome. Awesome in terms of like, the stars aligned for, Claudia with Bullying Prevention Month. Today is National Mental Health Day. And just, when you try to, put out something into the universe is going to come and, meet you halfway. So I'm glad that these could coincide with, all of these different things. And I hope it also says, Claudia, it's the price of being a celebrity.
Oh, one day. Yeah. I'm already starting to get feedback. So I can I just say one thing, Katelynn? I just wanted to share my website if that was okay. I don't know if we were going to get a chance to do that.
Yes, actually, right now, I was going to have one by one. You all sign up and give the plugs of where we can find you and everything involving that. But I did want to thank everyone watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for dropping your comments.
Facebook. Thank you, YouTube.
Yes, thank you for interacting. And of course, thank you to all of you being here, saying hi, taking time out of your day to just promote each other, have these conversations, bounce energy off of each other. This was so fun. And yes, we can go one by one, giving those plugs of, Amazon, website, social media, starting with Lamar.
Let's start with Claudia. She got the ball rolling. Let's go back.
Okay. There we go. Starting with Claudia.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you, Katelynn, for giving us a chance to share our stories. You could tell that I hadn't shared it in a while, so I'm very excited. So thank you for that. Thank you to the librarians, to the educators out there, to the people who share our stories. Thank you to those that promote and plug our stories. And with that, I just want to say, if you guys have a chance to please visit juststopthebullying.com, dreamstarpublications.com. I also have the books available and on Amazon, and I just got the hardcover copy for the Bully Who Learned to Love. Super excited about that. So thank you so much.
Congratulations. I'm always super excited when someone says, I got the hardcover copy. I'm like, let's go. Like, congratulations to you for that. Wonderful. And then back up to Lamar. If you have anything to plug, where can we find you after this if we want to find more about you and the adventures of Sir Jankster?
All right. Got a lot to plug. So, again, make sure you go to HEB and pick up some Jank. HEB, all across Texas. The book you can actually get Barnes and Nobles here in McAllen on Ware, so you're able to pick that up, or visit the website bbqjank.com. Very easy to find. Follow me at bbqjank across all media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. At bbqjank is where you find me. Very easy to get in touch with.
Very nice. Okay. I love it so much. And Ramírez, where can we find you after this to find more of yourself and the A Perfect Book series?
You can find my book. Well, there's two ways you can find my book. The first one would be exclusively at the Storybook Garden in Weslaco, and J'aime le livre, which is a bookstore in McAllen. So either of those two places.
Very nice. And we did have one final comment before we sign off. Rehope is saying, thank you guys for your stories. And yes, absolutely. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you all for just sharing that. This was so fun. Being able to hear all your insights and like the story behind the story is always super interesting. And just, I'm so very grateful that you all could come on and talk more about your messages, about what's to come. I'm sure, like, I know me, I'm very excited to see like future projects and everything. And for the viewers as well to look, there's things to look forward to. And we're going to keep going and we're going to keep growing and keep pursuing. So thank you again so very much. This was so very fun. And this is not the end of The Right Crowd. Today was the second Saturday. Tomorrow we have 2 more panels at 2 and 4. And every single Saturday and every single Sunday in the month of October. As of right now, we have a total of 15 panels with 50 panelists across the board. So I'm crazy excited to see what's more to come. And if you want to rewatch this panel, hear more about all of the different things, again, they're available on author Katelynn Rentería YouTube, author Katelynn Rentería Facebook, and authorkatelynnrenteria.com/The Right Crowd. So awesome. Thank you all to our panelists again for joining, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.